I think we're good to go now.
Right. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please.
I'll try to join on the phone. I'm on transit though, and all my gadgets seems to be out of power, but I'll try to keep along even if on the phone.
All right.
I go out from here.
All right. So devotees, we welcome you all to today's Srimad Bhagavatam discourse, which is going to be led by Her Grace Mother VRAJALILA Devi, who needs no introduction. She is a mother to so many of us. It's beautiful. In devotional life, you can have one person and have so many relationships with that person at the same time. You can have one person as a friend. You can have the same person as a mother. You can have the same person as a niece. So many as a spiritual mother. So without much to say, Mother, if you're ready, we'll put the verse on the screen and then you will start the class. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Bol. Govinda, I knew. Okay, that was it. Govinda Prabhu. Yeah. So I'll just chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, text number 13. So I'm just going to read the Sanskrit, the synonyms, and then the translation. Ekai kasonya gani dianu habavayat padadi yavat dashitam gadat ritaha jitam stanam apoyadarayat param sudyati dir yata. I like that last verse. Param sudyati dir yata. Synonyms. Eka shaha, one to one, or one after another. Angani, limbs. Diya, by attention. Anubhavayat, meditate upon. Pada adi, legs, etc. Yavat, until. Hasitam, smiling. Gadabrita, the personality of Godhead. Jitam, gradually controlling the mind. Stanam, place. Apohya, leaving. Dahrayat, meditate upon. Param, higher and higher. Sudhiyati, purified. Dihi, intelligence. Yata, as much as. Srila Prabhupada's translation. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, and in this way, higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The process of meditation recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not to fix one's attention on something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Satchidananda Vigraha, as described in the scriptures. There are also authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms, and there are authorized representations of deities in the temples. Thus, one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, and gradually rising higher and higher up to his smiling face. According to the Bhagavat school, the Lord's rasa dance is the smiling face of the Lord. since it is recommended in this verse that one should gradually progress from the lotus feet up to the smiling face, we shall not jump at once to understand the Lord's pastimes in the rasa dance. It is better to practice concentrating our attention by offering flowers and tulasi to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, we gradually become purified by the archana process. We dress the Lord, bathe him, etc. And all these transcendental activities help us to purify our existence. When we reach the higher standard of purification, if we see the smiling face of the Lord or hear the rasa dance pastimes of the Lord, then we can relish his activities. In the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, therefore, the rasa dance pastimes are delineated in the 10th canto, chapters 29 to 34. The more one concentrates on the transcendental form of the Lord, either on the lotus feet, the calves, the thighs, or the chest, the more one becomes purified. In this verse, it is clearly stated, the more the intelligence becomes purified, which means the more one becomes detached from sense gratification. Our intelligence in the present conditioned state of life is impure due to being engaged in sense gratification. The result of meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord will be manifested by one's detachment from sense gratification. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of meditation is purification of one's intelligence. Those who are too engrossed in sense gratification cannot be allowed to participate in archana or to touch the transcendental form of the Radha, Krishna, or Vishnu deities. For them, it is better to meditate upon the gigantic Virat Rupa of the Lord, as recommended in the next verse. The impersonalists and the voidists are therefore recommended to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship in the temple. Because the impersonalists and the voidists are not sufficiently purified in their spiritual activities, archana is not meant for them. Om Ganati Mirandasya Ganagana Shalakaya Chakshiran Militamyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sanyavari Pashtatyade Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhaktivedanta Namane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shikora Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I was going to read that verse again. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, and in this way higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. Hari Hari Bol. So, firstly, thank you all for being here again. We're always very grateful and happy to be in all of your association. And it was interesting for me when I read this verse that Prabhupada is immediately taking us into this understanding that Krishna is a person, and that he's immediately in that beginning of the purport, he's letting us know that meditation does not mean meditating on the void. And, we know that in most of modern day society and most spiritualists, actually, they meditate a lot. There's a lot of meditation going on, especially now in America. It's always been something that people are attentive to in some ways, However, in America, many of the spiritual organizations, that's the focus for purification. That's the focus for what they call liberation. However, most of these spiritual these spiritual organizations, they are focused on meditating on the impersonal aspect of the Lord, the void. I must confess that I had been a part of that type of meditation for many years. And coming to this platform where Prabhupada starts this purport, that meditation means to meditate on the personal aspect of the Lord. And then, of course, he's sharing with us how to do that meditation. So this impersonal aspect of the Lord is so prominent everywhere. Therefore, it's important for those persons that have been invited into the Vedic paradigm to really trust that Krishna is a person. It's a big call for all of us to really, hello Scarlett, thank you for being here, to really trust that Krishna is a person. Because if we don't trust that, it will be so very difficult for us to meditate in terms of what's being recommended in this purport, in this verse. So the recommendation is to start worshiping, start meditating on the feet of the Lord. This is the beginning of this translation. And how easy can that be for anyone to meditate on the feet of the Lord if we don't trust that the Lord have feet? That's going to be very difficult. So in modern world today, most people, they don't have that understanding that Krishna, the Lord, have feet. I believe even in the Christian paradigm, there is an understanding that God is a person. There's definitely is that understanding. However, we don't often hear, at least I haven't often heard, I mean, I can check with all the scholars that's on our platform here. We don't often hear of, in the Christian paradigm, my daughter's a Christian minister, so I check in with her a lot. And I don't always hear, oh, we're gonna just, remember the Lord's lotus feet. We're gonna think about the Lord's lotus feet. I don't often hear that, although that may be there in the more orthodox understanding of Christianity, I have no doubt. So this is something that is reserved for those persons that have made a commitment to accepting that God is a person, and to fully understand that God is a person with what appears to be a physical body. It appears to be a physical body. And for us that's in the conditioned state, we may not fully understand, the Lord's body as transcendental. And so this is why we get these instructions in this beautiful chapter, the Lord and the Heart. And so this section of the Bhagavatam, this second chapter of Bhagavatam is so key, is so important for kind of cementing, if you will, our trust that Krishna is a person. This is what's very important for anyone that takes to the path of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna is a person. I remember we have a very senior disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. She left her body now. Her name is Mother Indrani. And one of the things that she said when she met the devotees, and our Guru Maharaj Bhakti Tirtha, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, was speaking at one of the universities in Washington, D.C. And he was speaking on the personal aspect of Krishna, of the Lord. And this Mataji, when she came, this mother, she was 69 years old, 69. And what she said to us, the devotees, when she heard that lecture of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, she said, that was the first time that I ever heard that God is a person, the first time. And she was an actual spiritualist. She was practicing spirituality for many years. And so this understanding is not, it's not cheap. It's not, it's not ordinary. And so first, it's important for us as Bhakti Yoga practitioners to embrace this understanding that God is a person. Once we're able to do that, once we're able to trust that, then we can start really understanding what these different verses are helping us, how they're helping us to go deeper. So I wanted to just focus on meditation in this verse. Meditation begins from the lotus feet and progresses to the Lord's smiling face. Meditation does not begin with Om, even though Om is actually an entrance to understanding the Lord. However, most people stop there. They stop with the Om. And although it brings a lot of internal peace, meditating on Om, because it is spiritual sound vibration, it doesn't really give us a personal understanding of the Supreme Lord. We have to get additional help from those persons that understand this personal process of bhakti. It's a very personal process. So meditation begins from the lotus feet of the Lord and progresses to the Lord's smiling face. When I think of the Lord's smiling face, there's so many different pastimes when the Lord simply smiles at different practitioners of bhakti, of this bhakti process. When Krishna doesn't speak personally, he doesn't always speak. He speaks through his smile. So Prabhupada is explaining here that before we can understand his smile, before we can really embrace Krishna as a person smiling, it's most important to first understand his feet. Now, why would we, focus on somebody's feet? In the material world, we generally don't think of a person's feet as being the most auspicious part of their body, right? Generally, in the material world, in our conditioned state, oftentimes people think of the feet as like the feet, walks in all different places. It's dirty. It's not, many people don't think of it as auspicious, or in this sense, in how this is being explained to us from the scriptures, that it is the most auspicious part, one of the most auspicious parts of the Lord, of God, how to start focusing our attention on that part of God. Of course, we know, even in our conditioned state, there are cultures that do understand the significance, the auspiciousness of feet, but that's not so, it's kind of rare to have that. But here we're learning that it's important to begin from the feet, from the lotus feet of the Lord. And there's several different reasons for that. One of them being that it's explained, and I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction. It's explained that we can understand the Lord through authorized means. And authorized means are for us, for the Bhakti Yogi practitioner, the scriptures. The scriptures, that's the authorized means of understanding the Lord. And so when we think about the scriptures for a Bhakti Yogi practitioner, we usually think about the SRIMAD Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the more advanced understanding of our practice, of engaging in our practice. So in the SRIMAD Bhagavatam, it is explained that all of the Bhagavatams, which are our scriptures, our authorized scriptures, are represented by different parts of the Lord, And so the feet are represented by studying or understanding or engaging in hearing from the first canto of SRIMAD Bhagavatam. So when we read the first canto of SRIMAD Bhagavatam, we will start understanding more about the lotus feet of the Lord. We will get an opportunity to really connect with the beginning aspect of meditation, the beginning understanding of how to eventually come to this realization of the Lord's smiling face. And so the first canto represents the Lord's lotus feet. The second and third canto represents the Lord's thighs, the thighs of the Lord. And the sixth canto represents his chest, which is what's being spoken of in this verse. Srila Prabhupada makes reference to understanding the Lord gradually, to really focusing on these different limbs of the Lord, so that we can gradually come to that place of experiencing, as I said earlier, the face, the smile of the Lord. So when I think of the smile of the Lord, this pastime comes to me of the Brahmanas and the Brahmanas' wives. And in this pastime, the Brahmanas, if we remember this pastime, this beautiful pastime of Krishna, where the Brahmanas, Krishna and the cowherd boys, all his friends, they had come to a particular place, and they were sitting in this place and they were hungry. And there were these Brahmanas that were performing this yagya, the sacrifice. And the cowherd boys were saying to Krishna, Krishna's friends were saying to Krishna that they're very hungry, they want to get something to eat. And Krishna says, okay, you can go to those Brahmanas that are performing yagyas. They're performing this particular yagya. And these cowherd boys went to the sacrifice where they were performing the sacrifice, and asked these Brahmanas to give some food. And they actually said that Krishna wanted something to eat. And the Brahmanas that were doing the sacrifice refused. They refused because they were thinking that would in some way affect their sacrifice. It would contaminate the sacrifice that they were doing. However, these cowherd boys, they were scripturally intelligent, and they explained to these Brahmanas, no, it's not going to affect anything that you're doing, because this particular sacrifice that you're doing does not get affected when you offer any of the foodstuffs from the sacrifice. However, these Brahmanas, they still refused in a way that they didn't speak. They just continued. They just like ignored these boys. And so these boys, they went back to Krishna to tell him what happened. And one of the points that Prabhupada makes in the purport is that Krishna simply smiled at the boys. He smiled. He wasn't disturbed. He wasn't angry. He didn't say, oh, these Brahmanas, they're so puffed up. They don't understand, how to, accept and how to give in charity, how to give food. He didn't say any of those things. He just smiled. And Vishwanath Chakravarti explains, one of the authorities on the scriptures, explained that when Krishna smiled in that way to the Brahmanas, he was actually instructing them not to take it so seriously, because these Brahmanas, they were being very materialistic. They were doing the sacrifice in order to go to the heavenly planets. And so Krishna's smile often gives instructions to his devotees. And so the instruction for these cowherd boys were for them at that particular time to just ignore what these Brahmanas had done, and that Krishna himself wasn't taking any offense against these Brahmanas. And then he just instructed them, go to the Brahmanas' wives. And if you go to the Brahmanas' wives, they will certainly give you food. And the Brahmanas, they were thinking, but how Krishna told them, don't even tell the Brahmanas' wives that you're coming for food, that you're hungry. And so the boys were saying to Krishna, but how are we gonna let them know that we want to eat? We need to eat. We're very hungry. And Krishna told these boys, just by these wives looking at you, just by them looking at you, they'll know that you're hungry. And so these pastimes, they instruct us in many, many, many different ways. And this focus of Krishna smiling was to let the boys know, just don't take shelter. Don't lose your all intelligence in what somebody is not doing. But remember, there always is somebody that is dedicated and that will support you, that will help you, that will give you direction, that will take care of your whatever needs you may have. Those persons are the persons that are dedicated to me. Those persons are the persons that, you know, they love me. And so you need to just take shelter of those persons. And so in this pastime, we learn this lesson, we learn this beautiful lesson that because the cowherd boys, they were so dedicated to Krishna, because they had so much love for Krishna, they could understand this mood that we just as Prabhupada is saying, in this meditation, we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, and we take shelter in those persons that are giving us understanding about the Supreme Lord. So now here we are with this meditation begins from the lotus feet. Where does this come from? Those authorized persons that are in love with Krishna, those authorized persons that are understanding how to approach Krishna. And so here we know that this authority, these persons that really love Krishna, they're helping us to know that the lotus feet of the Lord are like lotus flowers. When we meditate on Krishna's lotus feet, we will automatically start the process of purification from conditional life. The feet of the Lord is so cleansing for removing material conditioning that when we started that place, when we started the feet, then we get the mercy. We get the mercy from the devotees, those saints, those previous saints that have taught us, that has given us this understanding. And then we're able to move, as Prabhupada says in the translation, we gradually move from the conditions of the mind to the intelligence, and to purified intelligence that will help us to really develop a relationship with the Lord. Just like in this little story, these wives, their intelligence was purified. They had this deep affection and love for the Lord. And so this is what's being requested for all of us, is to develop this deep affection, to not become so much affected by the conditions of the material world and the people in the material world that are often not accepting us, but to accept that the Lord is always going to be there for us. So this is the, if we will, the structure that's set up for worshiping the Lord. Prabhupada says the more the mind becomes fixed on the different parts of the Lord, then one after another, he explains. So it's step by step that we take this, that we meditate on this physical transcendental means it's not of this world. God is not of this world. And so when we fix our minds, when we first have trust that God is a person, and we understand, even in the Bible, it says we are made in the image of God. So yes, there is an understanding that if we're in the image of God and we have feet, then the Lord also has feet. There may not be so much focus on that, but here we see in our scriptures, there's a whole verse that's dedicated to us understanding the feet of the Lord. So the reason for that is twofold. One is to let us understand that there are people in the world that do not accept or will not accept or don't have proper understanding about this personality of the Lord and how the Lord is to be worshipped from these different limbs. They may not have this knowledge, they may not have this understanding. However, this understanding helps us to remove whatever conditioning that may be there in our consciousness. This understanding that the Lord's limbs are important, The body of the Lord is important. And so there is in the Bhagavad Gita, I think if you can pull that up, the entire 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to helping us understand who the Lord is. You see, and to trust that the Lord is a person. So in Bhagavad Gita 6:19, Yata dipo nivatasto Bengata sampama smrita. That verse 619, Saha, if you can pull that up. That's a nice verse to validate what's being explained in this verse. Yata dipo nivatasto Ningates sapama smrita. Yogina yata chitasha yunjato yogam atmanaha. This verse explains that as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. A truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. So this verse helps us to remember how to become transcendental, how we are in this process of bhakti, we're becoming transcendental. And this verse helps us to understand how to do that. Constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord. And then this verse also explains to us what do we need to do in order to become constantly undisturbed in our meditation on the worshipful Lord. And then here the verse explains with a controlled mind, it's okay, with a controlled mind, always steady. Those are very important words. How do we get our minds controlled? How do we always remain steady in meditation on the transcendent self? How do we do that? How do we engage in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord? How do we do that? And so you can take it off, Saha. So this is not so easy, right? So one of the ways to do that is to start with the meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord. But before we can do that, we got to believe, we got to really trust that the Lord has lotus feet. The Lord has feet that we can really meditate on. And so this transcendent self is the supreme Lord, it's the supreme personality. And then there is this self, this little small self that is always in contradiction with the transcendent self. Why is this small self always in contradiction when the transcendent self is really a part of, we are a part of that transcendental self? This verse speaks about Satchidananda Vigraha, which means eternality, knowledge, and bliss. We are a part of eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Yet we also know that we are a part of this material external energy of the Lord. We're conditioned by that. Our consciousness, our thoughts, our feelings, our willingness, everything about us is conditioned by this material existence. And so to make that transition from this material existence to this place of being undisturbed in our meditation requires grace from the Lord, and it requires grace from those persons that have explicit faith in the Lord, like those Brahmanas' wives. Now, how do we get to that place? What is it that's required for us to get to that? One of the, I was reading something about a Christian minister recently, and he was saying, you know, that he realized at a point that he was giving his congregation so much of the scriptures, and his focus was always to help his congregation understand the science of the Bible. And then one day it occurred to him that he was giving so much of the Bible always. That was his constant focus. And he was helping his practitioners to understand the Bible by also giving some focus on their physical self. In other words, he would express to them, you always need to exercise, you always need to take care of your physical body. This body is a temple, it's meant for the service of the Lord. But most important, you need to understand, these verses in the scriptures. And then he said that one day he thought about the fact that there is an intermediate part between the physical part of ourselves and that part that truly believes the scriptural meanings of understanding the Lord. So just the same way, there is a gap between us understanding the worship of the lotus feet of the Lord. There's often a gap for us to really imbibe that mood in our consciousness. And that in that gap, which we often don't pay attention to, is the emotions of the mind. The emotions of the mind, what happens in the mind. And so these emotions that are often keeping us, entangled in different ways with our different feelings that may be going on from conditional life, they keep us focused more so on our small self, right? That keep us from really connecting with that transcendent self, so that we can begin to really accept that my trust, my faith is in the worship of the worship of the Lord, starting, as Prabhupada is saying here, with the lotus feet. So when we start exploring this meditation, when we start exploring this meditation of focusing on our attention, focusing our whole being on the lotus feet of the Lord, it's important for us to ask ourselves the question, what is going on with my emotion? What state is my emotion in affecting me to not accept this fully, to start this worship with the lotus feet of the Lord? Prabhupada says that the more, he explains that the more the intelligence becomes purified, the intelligence. Oftentimes the mind affects the intelligence. Sometimes the mind will really override the intelligence. And the mind, as we're sharing, is often affected by the different emotions that we are that are kind of detouring us on our journey of connecting with the transcendent self. So we have the detour of the mind, which Prabhupada explains is very fickle, very unstable. This mind that distracts us, that keeps us kind of like on a self journey, a small self journey, right? We're constantly on this small self journey of thinking that we're important, of thinking that what's happening in my life is I have control of it, of thinking that that I have to do, whatever it is to make my life better. We're constantly thinking in this way, and this can be a distraction when we're not remembering and trusting this transcendent self, when we're not remembering and trusting that everything is arranged by the Supreme Lord, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so there's another verse in the Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita 8:8. And here it's described, Avyasa Yoga Yuktena Chaitasha Nanya Gamina. I think, see 8:8. So again, we're being directed in this beautiful Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. And so here in this verse, it says, Abhyasa yoga, in the practice of meditation, in the practice of meditation, Chaitasha, by the mind and intelligence, Naanya Gamina, without being deviated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then in the purport, in the translation, a person who meditates on him, on Krishna, on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that person's mind constantly engaged in remembering him, remembering Krishna, undeviated from the path, is sure to reach me, is sure to connect with Krishna. And so this verse is, Prabhupada is saying, is stressing the importance of remembering him. So if we remember the lotus feet of the Lord, if we can remember that our connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead can come from us, what's the word I'm thinking of? Engaging the mind in remembering Krishna. If we can somehow or other, now we say somehow or other, however, it's science, Krishna consciousness is a science. So that somehow or other is not just, anyway, we could just do that anyway. No, that somehow or other is scientifically designed for us. And the science is that our minds can be constantly directed towards remembering the personality of Godhead by this mystic meditation. This mystic meditation is the meditation of the holy names of the Lord. If we can somehow or other take shelter constantly, as much as we can, in chanting the holy names of the Lord, in whatever we do, whatever we're doing in our lives, that we remember to chant, call the holy names of the Lord. As we call on the holy names of the Lord, then we will become more disconnected from that small self that wants to detour us, that wants to keep us engaged in the conditioned way of thinking. That calling of the name of the Lord will remind us how to worship the Lord. It will bring us back to this verse that's saying, start with the lotus feet. Start with the lotus feet of the Lord. Another process of starting with the lotus feet is to read the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, hearing about the Lord. Hearing about the Lord from the first canto. Start with the first canto. It's very scientific, which is why Srila Prabhupada gave us read first from the first canto, or start with reading from the first canto, and then go to the 10th canto. Then go to the 10th canto. And this is why Prabhupada says in this verse, and I'm gonna close with this. He says, he explains to us, the rasa dance. According to the Bhagavata school, the Lord's rasa dancing is the smiling face of the Lord. So this is, if we read this purport, when we read the purport, when we read the purport, according to the Bhagavata school, which is the school of bhakti, the Lord's rasa dancing, so this is one of the most intimate understanding of the Lord, of the pastimes of the Lord, is the smiling face of the Lord. So in order to get to the smiling face of the Lord, it's important to start with a part of the Lord that will help us to become reverential and to be able to assist our consciousness so that we can enter into this dancing, this rasa dancing, which is the smiling face of the Lord. This is why the verse is saying, start first with the feet. Start first with that part that is considered the lowest part of how we think as materialists. Start with that and then move up gradually, and that word is being used in this verse, gradually, to that place where we will experience this smiling face of the Lord. It is better to practice concentrating our attention by offering flowers and tulasi leaves to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way, we gradually become purified by this process. Gradually, Sahadev has underlined it, colored it. This gradually is so important because we don't often understand how much we are connected with that small self. We don't often meditate on that. We don't often focus, maybe meditation is not the right word, but we don't often focus on how much this small self is directing our everyday activities, this small self. The point of this verse is to help us to come to that place where our everyday activities is directed by remembering the Lord. And we start that remembrance by focusing on the Lord's lotus feet and gradually moving up, where we will come to that place where the cowherd boys, they could understand Krishna's message simply by the smile on his face. So Prabhupada mentions when we go into the temple and we see the deities, first start with the lotus feet of the Lord, the transcendent self, the transcendental Lord. And as we focus on the lotus feet of the Lord to purify our consciousness, purify our intelligence, and as we move up, that the intelligence then becomes more and more purified. As we chant the holy names of the Lord, and we keep moving up in our meditation on the Lord, then we will come to that place of eventually experiencing and realizing that Krishna is always smiling with us, and Krishna is always instructing us, always instructing us. And that's what this verse is all about. The yogis, you have the two different parts of the yogis and the devotees of the Lord who are reminding us to focus on the personality of the Lord, of the Godhead, ourselves, in himself, to focus on the Lord himself. So I wanted to close there by just reminding us to practice chanting, to remind us to start reading from the first canto of SRIMAD Bhagavatam, to not jump to the 10th canto, would not jump to just trying to see the Lord's smiling face, because we may not understand the instruction that might be coming to us. We need to have our consciousness purified, and that comes from really understanding the mind, how the mind works, and we need to do things in order to train the mind. One of a nice practical example for training the mind is to take some time and perhaps take one verse from either the Bhagavad Gita or the SRIMAD Bhagavatam, and every day take that verse and just meditate on that verse. Try to maybe, whatever it is that we do, see how it applies in our daily life. For example, let's say we need to take care of our physical body. So we walk, or we do whatever it is we do with our physical body. And we take that verse with us as we walk, as we run, as we swim, whatever it is that we do. And we meditate on how that verse really affects our lives. What impact is that verse having on our lives? So like today, this verse, the lotus feet of the Lord, meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, how will this verse today impact my life? Do I trust that the Lord has lotus feet? Do I understand the lotus feet of the Lord? How do I understand how the lotus feet of the Lord will impact me today in my daily activities? What can I do to align my consciousness? What can I do to align my consciousness with the verse that I may be studying for that day? And so this is an important part of this bhakti process, is to make it practical in our lives, because we often don't trust the Lord. We want to, we theoretically think we do. We intellectually sometimes think we do. However, to trust the Lord is to really believe that the Lord is a person and to take shelter in this, from this purport of the lotus feet. Take shelter of the lotus feet so that we can get instructions from the Lord's smiling face. So my dear devotees, thank you so much. Yeah, it's I'm happy to just try to, I have no realization about this verse, but in a way, Krishna tells Krishna, the Lord in the heart reminds me that this meditation is, at least for me, to remember that it's not, my meditation is not about, just saying, oh, it's not just trying to find my own, it's my self-peace, my small self-peace. No, it's about, meditation is about worshiping the limbs and the personal aspect of God, to know God is a person. Hari Hari Bol Sahadev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother Braj, as always. Lots of lessons and Krishna pastimes. I have a question, but I'll first check to see if any devotee has question, comment, realizations, please. You may indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak.
Well,
See,
the devotees,
as I'm trying to be a devotee, I'm learning to be humble. But I think it is also a healthy pride that I should have sometimes, that because looking back at who I used to be, where I came from, and for me to now know Krishna as he is and accept him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's a wonderful milestone. And I think I should be proud of myself sometimes because it's not so easy for people in general to believe that God is a person. And even those who believe God is a person, how would they believe this beautiful boy, playing pranks as God? But here I am, and all of us here, we accept him. And we're not accepting just a blind acceptance. There is a concrete conviction and proof that the Godhead is this blue boy. So today, from your text, I think, if Krishna will permit me, I'm a little proud of myself. If anyone has a question, please you may unmute to ask your question or speak.
Haribol. Thank you for sharing that, Saha. Yeah, it's
Hare Krishna.
it's wonderful that you I often think of the time of death. That's what Krishna says, is to the degree that we think we really know him and we're really remembering him, we will get that test at the time of death. And I've been fortunate to be able to work with many different people that have left their bodies. And there's one story of someone that I know, that this is a lady that Ekavira Prabhu and myself had to take care of. We offered to take care of her when she realized she had a heart problem, a heart challenge. And she didn't want to get the treatment from the hospital. So she decided that she would just leave her body. And so we took care of her. And then when she started, deteriorating. Then at a point in the deterioration process, she decided she wanted to go to the hospital, but it was too late for them to do the treatment for her. And it was that time that she had the test. and she started criticizing everything about Krishna. Everything. We were stunned. We were stunned. We were so stunned because she was such a sincere and so dedicated. However, it was at that moment that, based on her own desire, she had decided not to accept the treatment. And when she realized that she really was going to die, then that's the test. That's the time. Krishna tells us like that. Our true understanding of him comes at the time of death.
Yeah. Well,
So
I was talking to, oh, no, you can go ahead and speak.
no, I'm just waiting for devotees. Anyone has any, if somebody can even share something about the Lord's lotus feet, Varaha Prabhu, anybody, Govinda. I'm always eager to hear more about this mood of worshiping the Lord's lotus feet. I know there's so many different ways of how we can, how Krishna explains this. How does it, yeah.
I was talking to a friend, Chaitanya Prabhu, thank you. I was talking to a friend and, well, I'll let Chaitanya Prabhu go and then I will say what I want to say, but it's very interesting. I was talking to a friend who shared something with me and it's really applicable to what you are sharing with us. So Chaitanya Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
May I just thank you, Chaitanya Prabhu, for being on this class. He's a scholar of scholars, and I'm so very grateful. I have not seen you here before, so this is
Hare
mercy.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Haribol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. It's nice seeing you. It's nice seeing you building your little space. I first hid myself. And I was watching. And I was seeing that actually there's a transmission taking place. This particular class is a transmission from the heart, taking place, very purifying, honestly. And I'm very happy about it. You have such a depth of understanding and your ability to relate it to the immediate practices, is fantastic. And I think, anyway, we would really want you to be part of the teachers in the Bhaktivedanta Academy for Culture and Education in West Africa. If you can sacrifice the time, we'll work it out so that we'll give you some units to teach. It's very, your teaching is very touching. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, can you please give us some enlightenment about the Lord's lotus feet?
No, I just want you to elaborate a little bit, just to let us open our eyes to see those symbols at the lotus feet of the Lord, the various symbols at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yes.
To meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord actually also means that to know about those symbols and what each of them represents and how by meditating on them, we can actually attain all the desired purification. So can you please tell us a little bit about some of those symbols, at least the one that you know that we can take something from? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so very much. And so I am going to turn this back over to you because there's one of those marks that I always meditate on, that I think about, and that's the conch on the Lord, because I come from a place where there's lots of conch and water. I was born in, and so I always think of that. It's very interesting to me how my small self connects with my material understanding of that conch. And when I see that on the lotus feet of the Lord, then I'm really, it inspires me to know, like this verse is talking about the Virat Rupa of the Lord and how the Lord is everywhere. And we can learn about the Lord from, just seeing how he is in everything in the material world. And so for me to that conch, I believe is the strength, if I can remember correctly, the strength, having the strength Krishna is the most strong. That is his quality. And because Krishna is so strong, Krishna enters into the material realm, into this Virat Rupa, and there, my small self understanding of the Kanch, coming from a little town that's surrounded by water, you know, an island that's surrounded by water, and Kanch being such an important part of my childhood memories. To me, that represents how Krishna is so amazing that now I'm introduced to bhakti, and I can understand that the Lord's feet is represented, you know, in so many things in this world. And eventually, Krishna brings us all to this platform of understanding him, ultimately, even if it's just intellectual. Now, maybe I know there's an umbrella, I know there's a conch, I know there's a trident. No, that's not him. There's different, I can't remember all of them, but maybe you can do that because you have studied the lotus feet of the Lord. I love that.
No, forgive me. Please forgive me.
Prabhu, this is what it's all about. You know, we're here to learn and grow from each other. This is bhakti. And the time that you spent, the time you gave in your life to study from the first canto to the 12th canto of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam is to be acknowledged and appreciated. And if I can't do that, then what's the point? What's the point of relationships? So please.
I beg, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Okay. I know there's a club there. There's a club. And the club smashes all the mountains of previous sinful reactions and all the things reactions we have gathered due to our activities. So as devotees, if we can meditate on the club or the lotus feet of the Lord, it can smash the mountain of sinful reactions in our hearts and get us purified and allow us to get the real taste of the bhakti and, you know, eternal relationship, the mellow of that relationship between the individual soul and the Supreme Lord. So to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord means individually, I think we should study, we should go and get all those things, about 19 symbols at the lotus feet of the Lord. We should go and study it as homework and choose one that we can meditate on. But they are very, very powerful. The meditation there is very powerful. And if we can do that, definitely the desired result will be achieved. So I'm talking, but I've not been very attentive and conscious. So I will also try to practice.
Sorry.
I will practice more attentiveness, then I will also meditate. I will go back to them and study them and meditate on them one by one and see what I can get from there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, there's so many auspicious signs on the lotus feet of the Lord, and thank you for bringing us into that that understanding, that arena, that space, that sacred space of really going in deeper with those different symbols on the feet of the Lord. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I see Leela had her hand up, Saha.
Yeah, Madalila, do you have something to share, please?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, VRAJALILA. It's so lovely to see you. I appreciated just your explanation of this verse and just you brought it alive to see what it really means rather than some esoteric ideas that can't be achieved. You really brought it down to earth and made it seem possible for me to meditate on the form of the Lord. I'm not sure that I'm there yet. I know and I trust that Krishna is a person, but his form eludes me. But what I was thinking that is it appropriate to say that there's some symbolism here in addition to him having an actual body that we can meditate upon? There's also the symbolism of the lowest part of the body and the lowest of Krishna's energies. And if I can't even see his energies as in this world and in other jivas, and learn to treat and see those energies with love and with compassion and acceptance and non-judgment, then I have no business thinking about his feet. And so there's a lot of work for me to, practice that. And it's not that we're bad. We're just have a lot to work. Well, at least for myself, I have a lot of work to do in seeing that. How am I caring for other people? How am I accepting them? How am I caring for Mother Earth? How am I caring even for my own body? And if I can't see that with the right eyes, then I don't think I'll develop the right eyes to see the Lord's feet. And so, yeah, I was just thinking of that parallel of the lowest part of his body and how he says in the Bhagavad Gita, these are my lower energies. And it doesn't mean they're less than, it's a description. So yeah, it just felt like something I can apply in my everyday life.
Thank you, Leela. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of these verses. It reminds me again of that pastor and him coming to that place of just realizing I'm giving my congregation, the Bible. However, I'm not helping them in that gap of moving past the physical, the emotional, to really, really living the scriptures. And we see that in we see that in many institutions. We can read the scriptures, we can recite verses, we can do so many things. However, to practically apply and to be transparent in where we are, because oftentimes we use this term spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing means we think that we're more advanced than we really are. And we use the scriptures as crutches to support that understanding that we are advanced. However, if we're transparent and honest with each other, and we are eager to learn from each other and to grow, because each one of us, is gifted by Krishna in some way, then we can move through those emotions that may come up. When you tell somebody to meditate on the feet of the Lord, it brings up emotions. It brings up emotions. And people are not even aware of what those emotions might be. And so we as Bhakti practitioners, this is our purpose. Our goal is to help people that may be challenged in some way, even if it's just to give a little on small understanding, a baby step understanding of the mercy that comes from the lotus feet of the Lord. And so I appreciate what you said, Leela. I appreciate Chaitanya just telling us about strength. One of the marks in the Lord is to have strength, is to understand this club, right? This club. And so if we can meditate on that, how can I apply a club in my daily life with my desires for sense gratification, the things that distract me? How can I apply that club? What emotionally, how am I challenged with that? Am I challenged with that? Do I really believe I can apply a club? What stops me from believing that? These are things that we need to really apply in our lives. So thank you, Leela. Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing us to everyday practice of bhakti. That's what I call it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mother Leela, for what you just shared. And I'm happy I had to wait for Chaitanya Prema Bhakti Vedanta to speak. And you, Mother Leela, you also spoke, because what both of you just shared with us is exactly what I had to say. And even though you've said so much, because I like to talk, I'm still going to say something. And that is, I was having a very nice discussion with a friend. And this topic came up, and I'll put it on the screen. It's very interesting. Where is it? Yes, here. It's from the Bible. I hope you all can see it on the screen.
Yes.
This is the Old Testament, Numbers chapter 12. It says, descension of Aaron and Miriam. Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. We all know that Moses traveled all the way from Israel to Egypt to bring the Lord's people back home. So while he was there, he married an Ethiopian. And when he took his wife back to Israel, it became a big problem. So this is what we're reading about. So, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. So they said, has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? And the Lord heard it. Now the man, Moses, was very humble, more than all men who were on the face of the earth. Suddenly, the Lord said to Moses, Aaron and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tabernacle of meeting. So the three came out. Then the Lord came down in the pillar of cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both went forward. Then he said, so this is the Lord speaking, hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face, even plainly, and not in dark sayings, and he sees the form of the Lord. So here we're talking about the form of the Lord, you know, and we're talking about, like what Madalila was saying, we sometimes think I'm superior to this person, I'm better than this person. So these Israelites were thinking they were superior to the Ethiopians. And so they were scolding, admonishing Moses. But this is what the Lord is saying. And he sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the anger of the Lord was aroused against them. And he, that is God, departed. And when the cloud departed from above the tabernacle, suddenly Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. Then Aaron turned toward Miriam, and there she was a leper. So Aaron said to Moses, oh my Lord, please do not let, so I will end here, but this is just to show all of us that God himself hates people, hating on people just because of race, gender, or anything external. So I find this to be a very, very good lesson for all of us, because as human beings, it is quite easy for us to think that I am better than this, my group is better than that. And it does not help, because we are children of God. And some are very much loved by the Lord, and we should be very careful when we're talking about such people, just like Aaron and Miriam did to Moses. And Miriam became leprous because she had a big mouth. Excuse me to say that. Hare Krishna. So anyone with a question, comment, please, you may do so. Madam Raj, if you have something to share, you may also share on what I just read.
Thank you so much. That is so beautiful that we can read from the Bible. You know, Krishna's words, God's words is available for anyone that really trusts in him to hear. The thing that I often get from the Bible is this deep knowledge. And a lot of times the practitioners of the Bible, the way they give this knowledge is through fear. The beautiful thing about bhakti is that knowledge is given through love. And so Krishna loves everyone, no matter where they are or who they are. And Krishna is not wanting to put fear in any of us. Krishna simply wants us to become more aware of him and his loving presence. So in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 7:19, Krishna says, after many births, one who's actually advanced in intelligence, in understanding, that person surrender unto him. And what's the gap for that? What's in the gap that makes us not understand who Krishna is? Our gap of not being simple, our gap of dishonesty, our gap of just lust, greed, offenses, desire for profit, adoration, and distinction. So these are all the things in the gap that we are to be working with personally. You see, thank you, Saha. It's okay, this is the verse. But the point I would like to make here is it's very difficult to really start loving other people if we don't love our small self. And we cannot love our small self until we really start understanding the large self, the transcendental self. And that's Krishna, God, whatever name we call God, whatever that name is. There's no way we can love others. There's no way we can love ourselves if Krishna is not in the center of that mix. But Tirtha Maharaj gives a triangle. He says on one side, let's say there's me. On the other side, there's humanity. And on the top, there's Krishna. So if we're not always conscious about me, how am I doing? What's going on for me? How am I really loving myself? What does that mean? How am I caring and loving humanity? If Krishna is not there, then it's just, not going to, we're just going to be recycled. That's just, and we keep recycling until we get that understanding. This is simple knowledge from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Suniti, mother, Suniti.
Yeah, Sunita, did you have something to share? Please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, devotees,
Hare Krishna.
to everyone. Hare Krishna, mother. Thank you so
Lovely mother.
Thank you so much for your very, very sweet nectar for us this morning. I'm trying to say that sometimes we love Krishna because maybe we hear some pastimes about Krishna. We love him because we hear some activities that Krishna did it. So I'm saying, like Nishima Kabacha. Nishima Kabacha is very sweet, but sometimes if you're doing something you don't understand, you cannot do it. So if you read Nishima Kabacha, the translation, you will never stop reciting Nishima Kabacha every day. So the same as what you are saying this morning, that we should meditate on Krishna lotus feet. Yes, we can meditate on Krishna lotus feet. And Chaitanya Prema was saying a lot of symbol on Krishna lotus feet. So if you meditate some of the symbol, it will be very, very, it will be nice, because you cannot meditate on something that maybe you don't understand. But my plea is, if someone can explain all the symbols on Krishna lotus feet for us to understand, then maybe you will love to take one and meditate on it. I think that will help. a lot. So that's my plea, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your wisdom. Yes, Mother. That's such a nice focus, actually, you know, Chaitanya Prabhu bringing that into the class about Krishna's lotus feet. And because it's, what you're saying is absolutely correct. The mind becomes a little bit disturbed sometimes when we hear worship the Lord, and it may not impact us. Maybe we're not disturbed, but somebody else's mind might be, you know, to worship Krishna's lotus feet. So to really bring that to a practical application, which is what he did. I thought that was brilliant. And thank you. Not just brilliant, but it came from the Lord in the heart. That's what this verse is all, this whole chapter, the Lord in the heart. So the Lord in the heart gave him that intelligence. Now there is a book called Padaseva, I believe it is, that talks all about these marks. And if you really want to get the marks and hear it, there's a YouTube Swami that I listen to quite a bit. His name is what is his name? Keshava Swami, Keshava, what's his name, Prabhu?
Bhagavan.
Bhagavan, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
But
Keshava Swami.
yes, Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. He's a disciple of
Kadambakana.
Kadambakana Maharaj. Thank you so much. And he's young and he's brilliant. He's also a heart person, and he has a YouTube class on the lotus feet of the Lord. And anyway, yes, if I had listened to that class today, I'll be able to remind you of all the different, remind myself of all the different marks. However, I didn't listen to that class. However, what happened today is Chaitanya from the heart brought those marks in. And so Chaitanya himself can explain, because, you know, Prabhu, Chaitanya is very brilliant. He studied, him and Pavitra Prabhu, and I'm sure others, they gave their time to go to Vrindavan to study. It's not easy to do that. It really isn't. To stay in Vrindavan all the time that they did. So we need to hear more from these devotees. And I know that they're all busy teaching or distributing books or whatever, but they have a lot of knowledge, and not just knowledge. I think I know they have a lot of realizations. So maybe Chaitanya, you could do that. Just make a little book of the lotus feet of the Lord, make it available. Something, help the devotees.
Hare Krishna, thank you. If I may share this, there is a little bit of a description of Krishna's, the marks on the lotus feet of Shri Krishna in SRIMAD Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 2, text number 38. So it says, "O Lord, we are fortunate because the heavy burden of the demons upon this earth is immediately removed by your appearance. Indeed, we are certainly fortunate, for we shall be able to see upon this earth and in the heavenly planets the marks of lotus, conch shell, cloud, and disc that adorn your lotus feet." So in the purport, Prabhupada describes how Akura actually got off from his horse when he saw Lord Krishna's lotus feet on the ground of Vrindavan. So when Akura went to Vrindavan to take Krishna and Balaram away to the festival arranged by Kamsa, upon seeing the marks of the Lord's lotus feet on the ground of Vrindavan, he fell down and began to groan. These marks are visible to devotees who receive the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, called Tavanu Kampitam. The demigods were jubilant, not only because the appearance of the Supreme Lord would do away with the burdensome demons, but also because they will be able to see upon the ground the transcendental marks from the soles of the Lord's lotus feet. The gopis also did the same thing. When they're looking for Krishna, they're looking for their footprint, because the footprints are clearly evident because of those special markings. So And the class you were referring to from His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshavan Maharaj, I also listened. Amarendra Prabhu also has a class on this same symbols and the literature of Krishna, but I don't remember them all. I'm a typical Kali Yuga guy.
I am more of that. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you so much, Saha. And I want to remind the devotees, because I did speak about this in the class, simply by studying the first and second canto of the Lord, you are actually worshiping the Lord's lotus feet. So we are worshiping the Lord's lotus feet now by reading, by sharing the second canto, because the first and second canto, that is his lotus feet. And so, and Mother Suniti, thank you for that Nrsimha Kavacha. That's so exciting, because I was invited to give the class on Nrsimha Dev, and I was just meditating, Krishna, please, how are you going to use me? Gurudev, please. And now I hear the Nrsimha Kavacha, so I'm going to go read that. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So anyone else with a question, comment, realizations before we let Mother Braj go?
I want to thank some of the devotees that's here that showed up. You know, just to show up to sit and Zoom these days is, you know, a big austerity, it's a sacrifice. So thank you, Leela. Thank you, Chaitanya Prabhu. Thank you, Chaitanya Prema. Thank you, Sunita Mata. Thank you, Scarlett. Bhakta Hassan, where are you? Bhakta Hassan.
Hare Krishna. I'm here.
Yes, where are you, Prabhu? Where are you located?
I'm in Barcelona, Spain.
In Spain. Oh, beautiful. ¿Cómo está? You learned some Spanish?
Sí, estoy muy bien. Habla español.
Poquito.
Pero
Sí.
no aprendí español.
Muy bueno. Lila habla español y Uruguay, Mataji on here from also habla español.
Pero ¿de dónde eres?
Sorry?
¿De dónde eres?
¿Qué eres, Lila?
Where are you from? And it's Rajataruni who's from
Rajataruni.
Rajataruni from Uruguay. Estoy Belice.
Belice. Bueno. Me arreglo para verte, madre.
Muy bueno. Muy
y
bueno.
gracias por la clase.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. ¿Habla español, inglés?
Yes, I speak English, yes.
Okay. I was thinking, is he listening this whole time?
Yes.
Yeah, he's here most of the time. Yes.
I was really enjoying the class, and I wanted to share something, but I thought it's maybe to take more of your time about the Krishna. Yes. Anyway, I'm very new in Krishna consciousness, and I know very little. So in my initial stages, I used to watch the cartoons of Krishna, the Leela. So I become so addicted to, I have one picture here on my back, and this particular picture, I'm so addicted to this picture because most of the time it seems like a joke, but always it seems like Krishna, everywhere I go in this house, is looking at me. And sometimes I feel like, is it real? And seriously, it's real, because sometimes, even if I'm not talking, in my mind, it seems like we are communicating, you know, because in the Leela of Krishna, when he used to kill the demons, and every time in my heart, I'll be saying that, please, Krishna, remove this ignorance from my heart, kill the demons in me, you know. I used to have this with Krishna, because I have other pictures of Krishna, but sometimes I see myself that I'm not too qualified to look at them. But this particular one, I have it on my back here, and always this particular one. Yes, because most of the time I have some friends when they come here, I have to remove the pictures of Krishna because of they will criticize and so on. But this particular one, I find it very, very difficult to remove it. So I buy the sticker and paste it here. And always we have this special communication. Even if I'm going out, even if I pass it, I have to come back and touch his feet before I go. So thank you for this wonderful class. And I'm very, very happy to have this special association with all of you. Hare Krishna.
Wow, such beautiful realization.
Yes.
Realizations. I don't think you're so new, Dr. Hassan. You might just be now connecting back with everyone, all your family from many lifetimes. Thank you so much. You know, Dr. Hassan, that personality that you love so much, his name is Damodar. And yeah, so maybe sometimes you can visit us. We worship that personality named Damodar, and we get opportunities to look at his lotus feet.
Yes, actually, the name of my spiritual master. So I love it so much.
Bhakti Dira Damodar Maharaj ki jai. Haribol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Scarlett, for being here. Scarlett, you want to tell us, everybody, where you're from? Okay. Okay. Okay, no problem.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, my love. Yes, speech fasting. That's a good thing. Mona, that's called Mona. We don't talk. Sometimes silence is beautiful.
Yeah.
Hari. I need to practice that more often. Govinda Prabhu, anything you'd like to share? Okay, Govinda just dropped off, I think. Narayani, Devi, thank you so much. It's nice to have ladies on this call. Atma Devi, thank you. Atma, anything you want to share? Okay, Shiman Varaha Prabhu. Varaha, you're quiet. What's going on?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Okay, Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam. So glory to Gurudev. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. All glory to devotees.
Hari.
And all glories to you. Very nice class. Actually, it wasn't just a class. You took us through meditation. Systematically, you were lifting our consciousness higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. So thank you for this very wonderful service given us this morning. Thank you very much. But my question, I was thinking of asking you this question, and at a point I said, well, let me pause it and keep what you have given me for today. But since you asked me to say something, I would like to ask that to meditate on the lotus feet of Krishna. It's not such an easy thing to start meditating. One has to have a very have a peace of mind and to sit down and be able to systematically meditating on the Lord. But as you explained, that if you're reading Bhagavatam, first and second canto of Bhagavatam, or by listening to Bhagavatam, that is also, that is the real meditation. But I would also like to ask that, what about meditating on how to serve devotees? Because Krishna says those who are servant of his devotees are actually his devotees. And we cannot serve Krishna without serving his devotees. Devotees have to introduce us to Krishna. So one can sit down and meditate, become expert in thinking about Krishna, and this is various limbs of his body. But if he's devoid of serving the lotus feet of the devotees of the Lord, who are very, very dear to the Lord, then I don't see how his meditation will be complete. And so is it okay to, to start from serving the devotees of the Lord? Or, yeah, and if that is okay, then how do we do that? We are thinking about serving the different limbs of the Lord by thinking of those limbs. If you have to come down to start from, say we cannot worship God that we don't see. We cannot say we love God that we do not see. We say we love him. And to avoid the people that we see every day. And say, oh, let me jump and go and serve Krishna. So how he can be saved? And his answer was that by you cooperating among each other, that is how you can please me. And so it means that pleasing the devotees of the Lord is more important than try to please even the spiritual master or Krishna. So how do we practically, systematically, how do we see devotees of the Lord, and how do we practically love them and serve them?
I think that's another class, Govinda Prabhu. However, I'm gonna stick,
sorry.
I'm gonna stick with this first step in God realization. First step in God realization. And this is a Sukadeva Goswami, as we know. He is the embodiment of everything related to Krishna. And he's explaining the answer to the question that was asked, which is a little bit similar. We can't separate Krishna from his devotees. That's just not possible. How do we understand how to care for his devotees, or how do we understand how to have compassion for each other? How do we understand, the mood of Krishna? So once once a devotee connects us, to the Lord, the first thing we hear when we come into the temple, which is like Bhagavad Gita 101, is we hear how important it is to call the holy names of the Lord and how to hear about the holy names of the Lord. So here Sukadeva Goswami is saying, the answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. This is the first step in God realization. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society. And the point you're making is so well taken, that once we get introduced to a devotee, it's not possible to love the devotee, care about the devotee, if we don't have knowledge. Knowledge is important. And that's why Krishna's lotus feet is the first and second canto, because that gives us the understanding of how to really care about devotees. So if we really study, not just read, but study these two cantos, take verses from them, study these verses, make them a part of our lives and see how they apply, we'll see that they undoubtedly will always connect us with how to have compassion for all of humanity. That's my little understanding, Prabhu. This is a huge class. I mean, this is a class, Govinda, which you need to give. You need to be on this platform. You have so much wisdom, so much realization. You need to one day just get on this platform and give a class. And I have not yet heard you give a class.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very, very much. Always remember us in your prayers. We know you've been with our spiritual master for many years, serving devotees. I was telling you the last time we met that you already have your ticket. You're just waiting for the plane to take off and get back to your destination. Good day waiting for you. But don't forget us. Always remember and pray for us. Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari Bol, Prabhu. My ticket is only good if you all are here to help me use that ticket wisely. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Hare.
Atma Devi. Atma
Well,
Devi.
Even though you have the ticket, but there is no flight.
Yeah, exactly. Haribo.
We do not want
No,
to.
the flight is not ready yet, and we don't want to see the flight right now. No.
No, we don't.
Well, I am a product of all of your mercy. To be honest with all of you, if it wasn't for Africa and what I got being in Africa the years that I was there, I don't know what kind of devotee I would be. I'm sure I would still be a devotee, but I don't know what kind of devotee. So I am the devotee that I am today is because of the mercy and the love that I got from the people in Africa. That's, yeah, and that's, you know, that's Astra for me. Yeah.
Well, apart from like, say, maybe 3 devotees on this platform at the moment, all of us are somehow products of your sacrifice. So we can't thank you enough.
Mm.
Yeah.
We want to thank His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Ultimately, we want to thank Srila Prabhupada for making it possible that we can all reconnect. We can rejoin each other, right? So we can continue on this journey. And so, yeah, we all have the ticket and we all need to encourage each other, support each other, uplift each other. We all need to be there for each other. We need to have compassion for those of us that might be having struggles on the path. We just need to be this love examples of the love that we've received from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Brahmananda Prabhu, Srila, of course, Srila Prabhupada. This is our legacy to carry that on. Shriman Varaha Prabhu.
Yeah, I think he had something to share.
Okay, and Rajtarini, we just celebrated your birthday.
Yeah.
Radhe, Radhe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare
Hari Bol
Hare
Lesahar.
Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I hope someday, very soon, we'll have the opportunity to have Ms. Blum speak, because I've heard her speak 2 times, and both times he spoke a lot of wisdom. But she cannot speak now, so next time we're gonna catch you. I have a special web of catching people.
Narayani, what about Narayani? Would you like to say anything on Atma? Would you like to say anything to close us out?
I think Atma might be at work, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, Narayani. You know, each person's voice is so important.
Oh. Let me see.
Narayani, you mute. Okay, good.
No, I don't have nothing to say.
Just hearing your voice, my love, is something. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you so much. And we're also grateful for all the people that you and Pusha and whomever else, you know, invite on this platform. I try to listen to the classes every day. I may not be here, but I'm listening on YouTube, you know, if not that day, then the next day. So I'm really aware and grateful to all those devotees that come to this platform to share their wisdom. Thank you, Saha, for this amazing service. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, we're very much blessed. Yes. So on this note, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute.
Oh, Saha, one last thing. We need to hear from Govinda to give class and Varaha Prabhu. Haven't heard from those devotees giving class.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, Blama Mataji, remember your vows. We asking devotees to unmute, but stay who you are. Yes, we appreciate it. So devotees, you may unmute and we all chant Hare Krishna mantra to express appreciation for our speaker's presence here today and giving us so much of her time and wisdom. Jai Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Anchakapatarvescha, Kapasanivya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanavyo, Vaishnavavyo, Namo Namaha.
Grace, Mother Devi
Ki Jai.
Vaishnava